Episode 6. How could Alice endure such grievances? She wanted to march up to George and yell at him, but her roommates Mary and Lisa stopped her. Don't. He isn't the same guy he used to be. Don't waste your time, Mary warned her. That's right. Didn't he just win the lottery? Now he's loaded. Inviting everyone to a meal? Who cares? I won't go, Lisa said indignantly. Why not? If he wants to be a fool and waste all his money on an expensive meal, why not let him? I'm going, Alice said harshly. She wouldn't let George off so lightly after the way he had treated her. George, we want to invite our girlfriends to dinner. That's okay, right? Lex walked up to him and patted him on the shoulder. If you want to bring them, bring them. Anyone in our dorm who has a girlfriend can bring them. They were roommates, so he couldn't really refuse. They had lived under the same roof for 2 years, and he didn't want to offend anyone. Now that you have money, everything has changed. Lex was delighted. He patted George on the shoulder again before turning to leave, a look of triumph in his eyes. Come on, guys. Everyone, get ready to go. We're going to eat at the Palace Garden, Lex said. The classroom was once again in uproar, but as soon as they saw George leave, they were quick to follow him out. As they arrived at the school gate, they saw him getting into a taxi. Some of them wanted to get in as well, but he quickly closed the door. Hey, George, what's the meaning of this? One of his classmates asked. George rolled down the window and waved at them with a smile. I'm treating you guys to a meal. I didn't say I'd get you a taxi as well. This ride is mine. There's just enough room for me. Everyone looked bemused as they tilted their heads, trying to think of a solution. Someone stepped forward and asked, If you won't take us by car, then how are we supposed to get there? I'm sure you'll think of something. I'm off. See you at the Palace Garden, he said coldly. They treated me like this not so long ago. Now the tide has turned, and it feels good to be on the other side. On a recent class trip, they all had decided to take the bus because it was cheaper than taxis. However, when George stepped onto the bus, they wouldn't let him sit down, and he was shoved back onto the sidewalk. They said it was too full and there wasn't enough space for him. But this wasn't true. He could see 5 or 6 free seats on the bus. They just hadn't wanted him to ride with them.
Thank you guys
when the
for
others saw
watching
George
this
leaving in
video.
a taxi,
Recently
their hearts
we are
were
hitting
filled with
1000
jealousy and hatred.
subscribers.
It's
Thank
just
you
a
a
taxi.
lot guys
Let's book
for
some more
your love
Ubers,
and
and when we get
support.
to the restaurant, George can pay for them, Alice said. The other students looked at each other, but no one moved. George has plenty of money. Are you all worried that he won't be able to afford it? If I tell you to book some cars, just do it. Terry took a step forward and encouraged them. That's right. George has plenty of cash. He'll definitely be able to afford some taxis. After all, treating everyone to a meal at the Palace Garden is already going to cost him a bomb. After a moment, everyone agreed with Terry and booked Ubers. Terry and Ashley looked at each other and smiled smugly. They would never miss an opportunity to get one up on George. As there were about 50 students in the class, they booked 15 cabs and made up their minds to let George pay for them all. Harrison U was on the outskirts of the city, and the Palace Garden was downtown. A cab during the day was close to $20, and at night, it was more. Terry, let's grab a cab, Ashley shouted. No, I'll drive there. Terry wasn't interested in squeezing into a taxi with a bunch of poor students. He might as well take his own car. As he drove his BMW out of the school gate, he caught sight of Maddie passing by. He quickly made up his mind to invite her. Every time he asked out a beautiful girl, she always rejected him. This time, wasn't George inviting them to eat at the Palace Garden? He could use this opportunity to impress Maddie and improve his chances of winning her heart. Terry rolled the car window down and greeted her. After exchanging a few pleasantries, he mentioned where he was going for dinner. Maddie knew the Palace Garden. It was the most exclusive restaurant in the city. The food was prepared by celebrity chefs, and the prices were exorbitant. She could count the number of times she had been there on one hand. Maddie was impressed as she accepted his invitation. She thought to herself, looks like he's really into me. She couldn't help but have a whole new level of respect for him. Half an hour later, an excited group of students arrived at the Palace Garden entrance. As they got out of the cabs, they looked around for George. He had booked 5 standard rooms and was waiting inside for them. By any ordinary standards, these 5 rooms could be considered luxurious. As they approached the entrance, they still didn't see him, so they thought he must have tricked them and hadn't come. Alex was so angry that he wanted to rush into the restaurant and search for George, but he was stopped by the security guards at the door. He couldn't contain his anger as he stood at the door shouting, "George, you dog! Where are you? Where did he go? He can't have gotten scared and run away, right? Sir, what are you shouting
Thank you guys
If you
for
want to
watching
come
this
in for a
video.
meal, please
Recently
pay
we
the
are
entrance
hitting
fee.
1000
If you don't,
subscribers.
please leave and
Thank
stop
you a
causing a
lot
scene.
guys for your love
Hearing the
and
shouts at the
support.
door, the manager walked over angrily. When he saw Ashley and all the other students crowded behind him, he expressed his displeasure at them all. Then he gave a look to the security guards, who glared ferociously at them all. "I am a man who's experienced all levels of society," the manager mused. "I'm not intimidated by a bunch of rowdy students." Alex timidly took a few steps forward and said in a lowered voice, "We're looking for someone. He's our classmate. He invited us here for a meal." Ashley's eyes flashed with a hint of ridicule. "Oh, what's his name?" the manager asked suspiciously. "George Rudd," Alex said. "Mr. Rudd? You're Mr. Rudd's classmates," he exclaimed. "Yes." Everyone smiled and nodded, wondering at the manager's sudden change of tone. "As you're Mr. Rudd's friends, please do come in. Mr. Rudd has reserved 5 private rooms for you. This way." He smiled at them respectfully. "Wait, we can't go in." "Yet. We haven't paid for the taxis," Ashley shouted. "I'll have to ask the manager to go in and get George out." "Forget it. Let's pay for the taxis ourselves." George said he was going to treat us to dinner, but he didn't say he was going to pay for us to get here. We can afford it ourselves. Matt tailed off hesitantly. He didn't think they should be taking any more of George's money. Exactly. George only said that he would treat us to a meal, so let's not push it, Natalie. Agreed. Before leaving the campus, she had gone to the bathroom and told George to wait for her. But when she came out, he had left. Although she was annoyed with him, she still wanted to enjoy more of his money. "Well said. If you don't want to ask George for the money, then you two can pay for all the cars," Ashley laughed. Matt and Natalie were speechless. The total cab fare was $350. That was basically what they had to cover their living expenses for a month. Once they paid for the cars, they would have to live on bread and water. The manager looked at Ashley and the others, shook his head, and disappeared inside.